I don't think I can take any more of this. Hi, my name is Sydney, welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Magic Spoon. And of course, if you would like to support my channel directly, then consider checking out my little tea company, Lion's Tea Exchange. I will link it in the description box. Now, as most of you probably already know at this point, I have very strong feelings towards the erasure of women, and this increasingly aggressive push to include trans-identified individuals in female spaces. And I won't lie, every time I talk about it, I end up feeling like a broken record because it's mostly just me banging pots and pans and shouting that sex is immutable and women's spaces need to be protected. It's all very bad and not good! But we find ourselves here yet again discussing this topic because as of late, a lot of things have been going down, particularly here in the United States, that are going to have massive consequences going forward. And although, like I have mentioned previously, I know a bunch of people are very burned out when it comes to this issue, I would be remiss if I sat back and didn't address it. Because I think we are seeing the erosion of sex-based rights happening in real time. And I don't like it. I personally believe, along with I'm assuming a lot of you, that the mockery of women and womanhood has been happening for quite some time. But now it seems to be accelerating at an alarming pace. And even in the last month alone, event after event after event has taken place that has demonstrated, at least to me, that these governments and judicial bodies are just not remotely on our side. To date, we have been ridiculed by iconic brands like Nike, Sea Folly, and Rip Curl.
Hi! Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us.
We are failed again and again by policymakers who have decided that what people feel is more important than what they are.
A major survey in the US found that a plurality of people aged 25 to 34 now think using the wrong pronouns should be a criminal offense.
We have been betrayed by the medical system that has trivialized our complex biological processes.
Do you believe then that men can become pregnant and have abortions?
Yes.
Black and indigenous birthing people. Birthing people of color.
Black birthing people.
And birthing people.
And our Black birthing persons.
And all the while, we have to sit down and shut up while people dance around us in woman face. And when we articulate our objection to the current state of things, we are called names, threatened, and in some cases, physically attacked or even face legal action. Because we live in stupid land. So with all of this said, it wasn't surprising when, on April 19, 2024, the Biden administration announced changes to Title IX, a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity that receives federal financial assistance. Mostly you hear about it with relation to university campuses, but it actually applies to all levels of education. So good. The new regulations, which will go into effect in August, stipulate a bunch of things, but importantly, prohibit discrimination based on gender identity as well, effectively stripping away protections afforded to women under the law that have been in place for, actually decades.
It also protects students against discrimination based on pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
And I realize to some of you that might sound dramatic, but all of this means that under these new rules, trans-identified individuals will have access to women's bathrooms, locker rooms, scholarships, and will be able to participate on women's athletic teams, just to name a few things. Some have also said that the use of preferred pronouns is now mandated and will be enforceable.
The administration will try to obfuscate all of this, but what it says is it will become a federal offense if you do not allow boys to use girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, and other private spaces starting as early as elementary school. It will be a federal offense if you do not use pronouns that are preferred by an individual.
I don't mean to alarm you guys, but we're getting to Canada levels of stupidity here. I also always wonder what the line is on this type of thing. Like, what if my pronouns are ooga booga? Can I force that on everyone? Can I make everyone ooga booga at me? Is this how it works? Honestly, I don't want to get too in the weeds with the Title IX stuff because there's a lot to it, and some of it is going to affect men as well, very negatively. But the point that I want to make here is that when legislators step up and decide to put sex and gender identity on the same playing field, in the same league, we're gonna have a bad time. And that is already playing out over and over and over again. And the first example I want to give you directly relates to this Title IX nonsense. And as long as we're gonna be talking about a bunch of terrible nonsense, you can lighten up the experience with a yummy bowl of cereal thanks to today's sponsor, Magic Spoon. Growing up can be kind of a bummer. You have to pay taxes, everyone judges you for playing video games and watching cartoons and playing with your Warhammer. But growing up can actually be fun, especially when you're munching on Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is the cereal that will remind you of those cartoon-filled Saturday mornings, but without all the sugar and artificial ingredients. Magic Spoon cereals and little treats are great for all sorts of diets and lifestyles, thanks to it being keto-friendly, gluten-free, soy-free, and naturally flavored, among other things. Not to mention, Magic Spoon is high in protein and low carb. Its cereals have 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 net carbs in each serving. Now, although my favorite flavors are fruity and this here peanut butter, Magic Spoon actually have a bunch of delicious flavors, including maple waffle, honey nut, birthday cake, and even chocolate chip cookie. And if cereal in a bowl isn't really your thing, they've got you covered with their new range of high-protein treat bars. The marshmallow ones are by far my favorite. I could eat a truckload of these, but they also have chocolate, blueberry, and chocolatey peanut butter. So if you too want all that cereal nostalgia but without all the sugar, then click the link in the description to get started today. You can build your very own custom box with all the flavors that you love, or add any of the delicious cereal treats to your order. Use code Sydney Watson for $5 off and get to trying Magic Spoon's very delicious flavors. Not too long ago, a video went viral that showed a middle school shot put event in West Virginia. In the video, 5 female athletes are shown stepping out of the competition, refusing to compete against a transgender athlete called Becky Pepper Jackson. In the footage, when each of the girls is called to compete, she steps into a cement ring on the ground, but instead of throwing the shot, she instead does a loop and then steps off of the field. The girls apparently also did this for the discus event. Now, I think it's worth acknowledging that for adults alone, it takes a tremendous amount of courage to walk away from opportunities and the sports they love in order to say no more. And we've been seeing more and more and more of that. But when we have 13 and 14-year-old girls stepping up to do what many adults are still too afraid to do, you know we have a serious problem. What's really important to know about this situation is that in mid-April, the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a law in West Virginia that banned transgender girls from playing against female athletes, finding that it violates Title IX. To cut a long story short, the bill was signed into law back in 2021 called the Save Women's Sports Act. It basically set a requirement that any official or even unofficial school-based athletic event would decide the athlete's participation based on their biological sex, as listed on their birth certificate issued at the time of their birth. So none of these birth certificate changes count after the fact. My apologies to the weirdos on TikTok who are going to cry now.
Something amazing came in the mail today. It's my new birth certificate that shows my name, how it is now. And one of my absolute favorite parts is that my sex designation has been changed from female to an X. The X is an all-inclusive marker, and it just makes me so happy.
Womp womp. Feeling a little mean today. In February 2023, Becky Pepper Jackson wanted to try out for the middle school's track and field team, leading to the appeals court temporarily pausing the state ban preventing transgender students from joining girls' sports teams. The judge who overturned the law for Becky Pepper Jackson, Tom Haytens, I think I said that correctly, wrote, "The defendants cannot expect that Becky will countermand her social transition, her medical treatment, and all the work she has done with her schools, teachers, and coaches for nearly half of her life by introducing herself to teammates, coaches, and even opponents as a boy." He reasoned this was because Pepper Jackson had socially and medically transitioned very early in life and has a birth certificate that designates that the 13-year-old is a female. None of which matters, just by the way, for obvious reasons. I really do just have these moments making these videos where I'm like, we are living through the stupidest period of time. Like, I am willing to say that this period of time is stupider than when people believed that lambs came from a plant. No, I did not make that up. Apparently this was a belief that was held for a period of time in the Middle Ages, and they called it a vegetable lamb. I actually think that's kind of adorable. But my point still stands. To put all of this into perspective, because the judicial system has so wholly failed these female athletes, the girls themselves are having to do what many adults cannot, and that is to take a stand in order to protect themselves and others. Because nobody seems to be listening to the countless women and girls who are screaming from the rooftops that all of this is not only unfair, but puts them at unnecessary risk. Is this what hating the government does to you? It like makes you kind of want anarchism a little bit? Is that what this is? Around the same time that all of this was going on, another clip of a trans-identified track and field runner called Aiden Gallagher from Sherwood, Oregon, went viral after it showed the child absolutely smashing female competitors. Gallagher won the girls' varsity 200-meter and 400-meter races only days after dominating Heat 1 at the Sherwood Need for Speed Classic event. In a now-deleted interview after one of the races, Gallagher expresses that the goal is to be the top in the state in the girls' events. Just to be clear as well, it seems like most of the information about these races has been scrubbed from the internet, probably because people don't like seeing girls getting beaten in their own sports like this, but there are some screenshots and whatnot floating around if you are interested yourselves. Here's the thing, right? And I know that I'm a broken record at this point, but I really do think that this needs to be said and reiterated again and again. Rather than people realizing how negatively all of this impacts women and girls, and especially female athletes and these poor female students, they instead turn around and seal clap for all of this perceived tolerance and inclusivity. And I mean that quite literally. Only a few days ago, a woman called Michelle Aleva, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but I don't care, that's how it's written, posted to X about a women's hockey league that forced attendees to recite an inclusion pledge prior to the game. And no, I'm not joking. The Sport a Rainbow pledge was displayed at a professional women's hockey league game on Wednesday evening at TD Place in Ottawa, Ontario. In her post, Aleva wrote, "I went to a professional women's hockey league game last night. Before the game, the audience was asked to read the following pledge out loud together. Part of the intention is to train the audience, which was full of young girls, to accept boys in their sport and to vilify people who don't." The pledge itself read, "I understand that all athletes, coaches, and competitors deserve to participate in sport free of judgment. I will help by speaking up against hateful speech and actions in my sport." Yeah, not gonna lie. Pretty obvious what that's in reference to. It's 2024, and I guess a hateful action is not wanting to get your knees ripped out by a boy in a dress. Perhaps the worst part is that this trend of ignoring the impact of gender ideology specifically on young girls, and then forcing those same young girls to take monumental stances to try and defend themselves against a well-funded, well-armed ideological behemoth isn't even really contained to sports. About a week after the Aiden Gallagher event got a ton of attention, yet another clip went viral that showed a young girl talking at a school board meeting in Pennsylvania. The girl, who I'm going to call Girl A because this is going to get confusing really quickly, told the board that a student at her school, a male who identifies as a girl, had threatened to harm another student who I'm going to call Girl B. As of filming, I'm not going to show you guys the clip of this young girl talking because YouTube definitely has some very strong rules around children and violent events, even though we don't see any violence whatsoever, but I just would like to be safe, and maybe post-edit Sydney will make a different decision. But essentially, Girl A explained that she, along with two of her friends, had warned the school's guidance counselor that the trans-identified student had threatened to harm Girl B. She also said that Girl B herself had, every day, also reported the threats to the same teacher. The teacher said that nothing would happen and essentially brushed it off. A few hours later, the trans-identified student brutally assaulted Girl B. Girl A, speaking at the school board meeting, said that she was second on the trans classmates' hit list and tearfully spoke about witnessing Girl B being brutally attacked and the aftermath of watching her friend's blood basically get cleaned off of the room where she was attacked and off of the floor and everything. Towards the end of her testimony, Girl A gets very choked up, and honestly, it's really hard to watch, explaining that she shouldn't have had to watch the event that unfolded, seeing Girl B bloodied and harmed and getting basically taken away by the adults. I know this is going to seem like a really obvious statement, but it is actually ridiculous that we have gotten to a point where we are allowing young girls to not only lose out on opportunities, but to even be demonized and assaulted and traumatized in the name of tolerance. Not to mention expecting these kids to have to stand up in the first place because adults can't and won't. Or you have the other side of that where adults are completely letting these young people down and not remotely thinking about protecting them. Even without the Title IX changes on the horizon, there has been a major shift away from rationality towards activism and indoctrination. But collectively, a lot of this is going so far as to strip away sex-based rights and then deny us the ability to speak out about it. I personally am not prepared to continue to watch women be mocked and ridiculed and disrespected and put in harm's way in order to accommodate gender ideology. The bottom line is that too many people have fought too hard for too long for academic and athletic opportunities to have them suddenly ripped away because a tiny fraction of the population feel uncomfortable in their own skin. And those who see nothing wrong with any of this, especially the women who pander to this ideology to appear tolerant and inclusive, are placing the burden of all of this on the shoulders of young girls and young female athletes. And that's not okay. In the end, gender ideology is changing the shape of our social fabric as we know it. And in my opinion, if we allow women's rights and spaces to be eroded further and further, soon they will be too far gone to easily get back. Now, on that very happy and pleasant note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Magic Spoon using the link in the description. Really, I can't say this enough. I have this stuff in my house all the time because it tastes so good, so definitely go and check out their line of cereals and cereal treats. I promise you will not regret it. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Is Title IX going to be a problem going forward? Do you think that people are overreacting to it, underreacting, reacting appropriately? What do you think of the inclusion of gender ideology in the new regulations? Do you think that that's necessary, unnecessary, that we're going in a really scary direction? What do you think of the situation in West Virginia with the young female athletes and the transgender individual? Do you think that they did the right thing? Do you think that it was unfair that they were put in that situation to begin with? And what do you generally make of all of these situations overall? As always, if you are here at the end of the video, congratulations. I do like having you along for the full ride, as you guys well know. If you are new to the channel and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of what I do, more of me, more of my opinions, feel free to subscribe, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment because I do read the majority of them and I like hearing your feedback. And of course, stay safe and well, my young potatoes, and I will see you in the next video.